Hi, Megan here, and this is week 5's assignment. I am going to talk to you first about the two sites of pictures that I looked at. The first one was the traditional Micronesian navigation collection, and I saw several themes throughout the pictures. Some of those themes would be weaving cloths, women eating, women preparing food, respected navigators, creating or constructing canoes as well as sailing canoes. This tells me that navigation is very big amongst the Micronesian people. There was dancing, a lot of dancing at ceremonies. There were thatched buildings. Some kind of showed their living conditions. Then moving on to site 2, I also, some of my favorite little slideshows that I clicked on was the stone money. I can't believe how incredibly heavy and large the stone money actually was, especially compared to the US dollar and the US currency. It's very, very different. And then also on site 2, on the voting slideshow, I found it interesting. There was a truck that was spray painted and it said "Vote Yes for Covenant." I thought that was really interesting. But the majority I'm going to talk to you about today are the videos. And first, I'd like to say that I got the chance to actually go listen to Kathy speak at Ching Conference Center today, and that was a really wonderful opportunity I had. It was my first poetry reading live event that I've ever been to, and so it was kind of a learning experience all the way around. But going on to her first video, which is Lessons from Hawaii, I she begins the video basically explaining or demonstrating hate towards the Micronesian people that she experienced and heard while she lived here in Hawaii. And she goes on to say how hearing all that hate resulted in her having hate towards herself, or feeling that there was something wrong with her. And she didn't realize that there was nothing wrong with being who she was, being Micronesian, until she left and actually moved back to the Marshall Islands. She said that she lived in Hawaii for about 14 years of her life. So she didn't want to wrap up the video. She said she didn't want it to be a political video. She just needed to share her experience and share how she felt. She's not blaming the Hawaiian people or in no ways trying to make it political. She just wanted to get her story out there. So I thought that was really cool that she included that in the video as well. Because she didn't necessarily need to say that, and I still feel that the video would have been impactful for many people's lives. Her next video was their statement and poem that she recited at the climate summit in 2014 at the opening ceremony. It was really impactful, I think, because she walks in traditional clothes and everyone else there is in business attire, and she starts off by explaining how climate change is a topic that a lot of people don't want to take on, and that how for the people of the Oceania, they have to look at their children and wonder or worry if they're going to know who their culture, what their culture is, and who their ancestors were if that island disappears due to climate change. And I think that's something that I've never really thought about until she brought it up today, multiple times in her video, and then once again at her talk today at Ching. And that was really interesting and kind of impactful for me to hear. And then she went on and recited her poem for her daughter, which gave me chills today in the Ching Conference Center when she read it out loud in person. And you can see in the video how many of the politicians are looking at each other, and you can tell that what she's saying is really sticking to them, and they're feeling influenced by her words, which again I think is really impressive that words can mean so much and be so impactful, because I don't see myself as someone who goes out and speaks like that. So that was really cool for me, to see all those people in the standing ovation at the end of her poem. So growing up on the mainland, it's easy for me to see how something like climate change can be easily overlooked as a real issue in the world today. But I think that's why I found Kathy's poem to her daughters to be so beautiful. In a way, that poem opened my eyes to the realization that climate change is a real issue, and it is pressing the lives of so many people, especially in the Pacific. Her going on to video 3, sorry, this video is a little longer than I thought it was, but I'm just talking, so I guess that's good. Her history project, I found this one, I think, to be my favorite video, which is kind of interesting. It's the last video I watched, and I didn't know before today that the United States used the Marshall Islands for nuclear testing, and that the people of the Marshall Islands were, and they still are, deeply affected by the nuclear testing that went on. It saddens me to hear the pain that the Marshallese people that Kathy expresses in her statement. So then she goes on to explain how she participated in this school district-wide competition called History Day. And when she said those words, it really struck something in me, because I, in high school, participated in a school district-wide competition called History Day. And she explains how 3 bald judges came up to her project finally, and one of them looked at her and said, "It really wasn't for the good of mankind, was it?" And then she lost. She didn't go on. And I find that disturbing, because I did my History Day project on the livestock yards industry in Nebraska, which wasn't that big of a deal for me, or especially not as big of a deal in comparison to how the nuclear testing affected the lives of the Marshallese people. And I ended up winning the school district-wide competition, winning at the state level, and then was able to go compete at the national competition in Washington, D.C. I feel that Kathy's project was more than just a project. It was an important message that should have been shared at that time. The National History Day competition that I attended needed more projects like Kathy's. And I'm really happy to hear that she's continuing to share her message, because I do feel it is incredibly important. So overall, I've learned that the people of Micronesia have been through a lot. Their islands are fragile, and climate change is a big issue for the survival of many cultures of Micronesia. The people are still wounded internally and in some cases externally from the nuclear testing. Family is important to their lifestyle. Once again, I really enjoyed listening to Kathy speak today. It was really eye-opening for me. And one of the things that she said during the meeting today was that the United States still owes a great deal of money to the Marshall Islands, and they claim that they've paid them back in full. But that's not so. So I guess that's one question I have, is just to do more research into what she said about U.S. repaying their debts to the Marshall Islands. And then another thing I'm interested in finding more about is how the United States is compensating Micronesians both educationally and medically. So I think those are the only 2 questions that I could come up with. Once again, very impactful, and thanks for listening.